We'll get started in just a moment. Yeah, we'll get started in just a moment. People are still making their way over. All right, sorry for the delay. We still have some other members coming in, I'm sure. But welcome to the Appropriations Judicial Committee. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient with us. We're going to start a little bit out of order. Judge O'Connell, will you make your way up with the tax court? For members on the committee, it's on page 2 of the line items. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for moving me up. Also, I have a presentation for the Department of Revenue at the same time, so I really appreciate that, sir.
You can tell them you're delayed because of me, and I apologize for that.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gullett and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding the amended fiscal year 26 budget for the Georgia Tax Court. My name is Frank O'Connell, and I've had the privilege of being nominated by the governor and confirmed by the General Assembly as the first Chief Judge of the Georgia Tax Court. And I'm joined today by Andrew Zoll, the Budget Director for the Administrative Office of the Courts. Turning now to the court's budget, the AFY 2026 items in Section 6, page 6 of the tracking sheets, and I'll reference the relevant line numbers. As you know, the tax court was established by your passage and the governor's signing of House Bill 1267 and subsequently amended by House Bill 392 to provide that the initial term of the chief judge would begin on April 1st, 2026. This budget request therefore provides for the initial funding, including startup costs for the tax court for the April through June 2026 period. And I'll begin with Section 6, line 6.10.1, which contains the governor's recommendation of $91,560 for personal services for the tax court effective April 1st, as House Bill 392 authorized compensation beginning on that date. Line 6.10.2, operations, $42,000, items like rent. Line 6.10.3, contracts, $110,000, items like the case management system, website, staff attorney, all for that period. And then line 6.10.4, startup costs of $100,000, furniture, perhaps computers for 3 individuals. Now these figures had to be come up with and turned in about 3.5 months ago, and Andrew helped me come up with these estimates, but there were a lot of unknowns at the time. I've done a lot of discovery since that time, and in fact, I didn't know where I was going to be located, but the OSA judges, Chief Judge Malahi and Deputy Chief Judge Boggs, have been fantastic to work with, and they've indicated that I can stay at the tax tribunal's location, which is housed where OSA is right now at 225 Peachtree Street. Also, as far as costs like a case management system, Judge Malahy was happy to have me stay where Judge O'Neill is, but thought it may not be appropriate to be on the same case management system, being in the judicial branch and there being in the executive branch. But I've since had conversations with Andrew and Ben Luke, the CIO of the AOC, and it appears that they may be able to add the tax court to the case management system that's being developed, in which case the cost will be very, very minor. Another issue to deal with, I've worked with Judge O'Neill, and his staff attorney is moving on after Friday, and he still has about 300 cases to try to dispose of by July 1st. And he and I have talked, and he indicated if I had a staff attorney that I wanted to hire, if it worked out for that person to also work for him for his remaining period, that person could help him dispense with the remaining cases, and that would work very well for the transition. So that's something we're going to try to do. He would be able to fund the staff attorney up through March or April, and some of these amounts that I've mentioned could be transferred to the tax tribunal to fund that staff attorney, perhaps for May and June of this year. That concludes my overview of the governor's budget recommendations for the Georgia Tax Court for AFY 26. And my first presentation to you as Chief Judge. I appreciate the committee's time and consideration. I support the governor's recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for that, and congratulations on your appointment. And this is the first of, I'm sure, many presentations to the Appropriations Committee, so glad you're here. I do have a couple questions, and then if the committee has any questions, just press your buttons. We'll make sure we follow up. So you did say these were done 3 months ago, and some things have changed, I guess particularly with the numbers, but you didn't tell us what the numbers should be now that things have changed, potentially. So salary, I don't imagine that's changed. That's something we kind of knew.
Yes, sir.
Rent, sounds like you're using a previous location. Is the rent different than $42,000 for the location that you're going to go to? The case management system, if you use a new one, that stood up soon, I think live soon. So what does that do for your contract fees? Does it lower it? I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
And if so, do you have an idea what that is? And furniture is probably just a good rough estimate, but if you've already purchased furniture or began that process, maybe you have a better specific number.
Well, I'll ask Andrew to step in. As far as the rent goes, it's going to be pretty much what it has been for the tax tribunal. I think some additional charge for the common areas, which I don't think was charged before. But Andrew, could you speak to that?
Thanks, Chairman Gullett.
Yep.
So in that 42,000, there was 20,000 that was set aside for rent. I don't think, it sounds like we're not going to need rent costs in the amended budget.
Okay.
But then in the FY 27, it seems like just a slightly increased rate of what the tax tribunal is paying now. So we'll have to address that in the
In full budget,
27.
sure.
Yeah. And then as far as the contract piece, I think that's the pool of money we would like to see maybe move to the tax tribunal to cover those tax attorney costs. And I think that would be about $56,000, but we'll confirm with Anna the exact figures. We want to confirm with DOAS what they have available to cover that amount for how many months.
Okay. Is there, so 56,000 is what you believe it is out of the 110,000 allocated?
That's my estimate, but I haven't had a chance to confirm with DOS how much they would be willing to.
How soon do you think you can do that?
I will try and get it today if I can.
Okay, perfect. Tomorrow would be great.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah. I need it by Thursday. I need it before I get into the office Thursday.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. And furniture, you're on pace for what you allocated for?
Yes, sir, but I believe that I'll be able to use some of the same furniture that Judge O'Neill has, so it could very well be less than that amount.
Okay. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Well, you did a great job. Thanks for your first one. We took it easy, and we appreciate you here, and good luck with the Department of Revenue. And again, thanks for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Bet.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go back to the agenda. Juvenile courts. Section 7 on your tracking sheets. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We met with them earlier this morning, 8 o'clock, so they've been here a long time. They're ready to
Yes.
get on the road, I know.
It's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I am Kirsten Wallace. I'm the Deputy Director with the Council of Juvenile Court Judges, and with me today I have our past president, Neil Brunt, Juvenile Court Judge, Neil Brunt from the Bartow County, and our president, Michelle Harrison from Douglas County. And if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll just jump right into our budget request.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, for fiscal year 26 amended, we are asking in our grants to counties for an increase for the judicial retirement system contribution rate. We're asking for an increase. It's a pass-through funding that we pay on behalf of the juvenile court judges' retirement system contribution. And Mr. Chairman, that's our end of our request,
Sure.
to the extent of our request.
Is there any questions from the members of the committee? Well, thanks for coming. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
It's going to get harder, guys. This is just the easy ones up front. So. Towards the end of the list, see, we got the end of the list. Public defender, Superior Courts. Whew. No, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
And we got West Georgia, the West Georgia crowd here. We'll conclude Bartow County, West Georgia. So thanks for being here. All right. To our friends at the Court of Appeals.
Happy to keep the trend going.
We'll see.
Trent Brown here for the Court of Appeals, here with my CFO, Chris Walker. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, for having us here. Ours is fairly simple. We have 3 items that we're asking for. The first is 511, $40,000 for the commute cost of a new judge. We're replacing a non-commuting judge with a commuting judge, which raises that cost. 62.5 is our cost we share with the Supreme Court for our security director. And then finally, $197,000. We're going from a hardware redundancy in IT to a cloud-based, and that's what we anticipate between licenses or otherwise to be the yearly cost of that change. Those are the 3 items.
Great. 2 questions I have, and then members of the committee, if you have something. So the judge with the commute fund starts when?
Started January of last year.
January. The new judge started January of last year?
It was an elected judge that started January of last year, but we really didn't have the data as to what his commuting travel would be like. So ultimately, we didn't ask for it in FY26 at all. So we've basically been funding in-house. The total for the year would be about $40,000.
Okay.
So we've been funding in-house the first part of FY26, but the $40,000 represents what we anticipate to be yearly costs.
Okay. So for a half year, it's $20,000, but you've had to find money other ways to fund it for now.
For the most part, but commuting can change throughout the year, but on average, it's be $20,000 for the 6-month period.
Great. Okay. And then on your on your licensing costs for the cloud-based solution? You said 197,000 for a full year. When did you guys start that?
We started.
Or the cost for that?
We started working on that project beginning of this year. We're doing phase-in, beginning of this fiscal year. But
Okay.
we're doing phase-in now for it, so we're not there. We're kind of operating 1 foot into cloud-based, still depending on our hardware-based right now, but we're in that process.
So you're running in parallel as you switch
We
over?
are.
And so the contract costs for that have already started fiscal year, so it really truly is 197,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's what we'll also ask for that same amount for FY '27,
Okay.
197.
All right. Any members have any questions? The trend continues.
I got it. There we go.
Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
y'all.
Appreciate what you do. To our Supreme Court friends, see if it keeps going or not. Well, they'll know.
I'll do my part.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The Supreme Court amended request is very simple. We just have one item. It's 10.1.1. And we have a annual agreement with the Department of Public Safety for state trooper detail for the Chief Justice. It's just a pass-through amount, and they tell us each year what that amount is, and they increase that amount subsequent to our submitting the FY26 budget. And this is just an adjustment for that pass-through. And that's all we have.
I'm trying to think of a really hard question, so someone else wants to buzz in and give me time to think of one. We don't let him off. He wouldn't let someone off this easy. I don't think. Any questions from members of the committee? The trend continues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Statewide Business Court.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you
members.
for being here. And thanks for your presentation not too long ago to this committee, so really appreciate that.
Sure, we appreciate the opportunity to share information, and I know this is a busy time of year for you all, so thank you for your time today. We have a new clerk of court at the Statewide Business Court, and I wanted to introduce her to you all, Emily Youngo. We worked together when I was with the Superior Courts and chaired the Legislation Committee, and she helped me with communication with the legislators then, and I hope to have her do that with me again. So glad to have her.
Glad to have you too. West Georgia, you're in Carroll County?
I'm from East Cobb.
East Cobb. Man, you got a little track when were you in East Cobb when you worked for him as a judge?
I
Supreme Court
was,
judge?
yeah.
Wow.
Well,
she,
no, he was with the Council of
she
Superior Court.
Oh, the
worked with
council.
the council.
Okay, not when you're, okay, gotcha.
And then she worked for the Supreme Court for a while as well, so a lot of knowledge from that experience.
Great.
And that's the subject of our request in the amended budget. But we are withdrawing part of that request because originally we thought the appointment was going to be in July. It ended up being 3 months later in January when the previous clerk transitioned out. There was a leave payout, and so we had put in $40,000 at the time we sent the budget request in, thinking that we were going to need to ask for that. But because the appointment was not made until January, we can basically just withdraw that request for that $41,000 because the time frame without the position filled nullified that amount of money. So that leaves the request to get in compliance with the law that requires the business court clerk to get an equal salary to the Court of Appeals clerk. And so that is the next request at 6.8.2. And we don't want to get behind on that and have to try to ask for catch-up there. So that's why we're, want to stay on top of that.
Well, you're going to make it really hard for us to be hard on you when you're scratching one item out of two on your budget. So, are there any questions from the committee? The trend continues. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Man, we're going to be out of here. This is, yeah, that's right. Wow. Superior Court judges. And the trend for West Georgia still continues a little bit here, so.
Mr. Chairman, thank y'all for having us today.
Thank you.
I do want to introduce Ms. Tracy Wilson. She's our new budget director. I know that all of y'all, as much as I have had a big appreciation for Charles, and this is our new Charles. I told her we'll eventually stop calling her the new Charles, but she has done a fantastic job and look forward to working with her.
Charles was amazing. I'm sure you're going to be wonderful too. I hope he's enjoying retirement. So if he's watching, hopefully he's not watching in retirement. That'd be awful.
Probably is. He probably is.
Well, hello. Welcome to, I hope you're enjoying retirement.
All right, Mr. Chairman, if you'll go to 9.3.1, 2, and 3, the requests that we have there in the budget, these were 3 judgeships that the legislator approved last year in HB 55. When y'all approved those, you did that on the old pay structure. These judgeships are effective on January 1 of 26. And since it's January 1 of 26, they're mandatory opt-ins to the new pay structure. And so these 3 items here just get them to where they are supposed to be under the new pay structure. The next 2 items that you have are 9.34 and 5, I believe. And these are reductions in the budget, and these will be removed. This is when for 2 new court judge positions that y'all put into the budget that went in 24, and y'all allow for these monies to be placed in for a new office setup. But once that's done, then we need to give that back to you, and this is us giving those funds back once that's been done.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions from the members of the committee? You got one? Don't give them a pass.
I don't want to be a trendsetter. I just want to follow the trend.
Well, since you're from West Georgia, we're going to say the trend continues. Thank you for being here. Thanks for what you do. It's nice meeting you. Look forward to working with you.
Actually,
All right.
y'all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Public defenders, you're next. Judge Ali, welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And good afternoon. I'm
Afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here again this afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing us to present to you. I have a crew with me today, and I would like to introduce them. In the interest of time, I'll make it very quick.
Sure.
Of course, I have Terry with me, our CFO. And when I introduce you, please stand up. This is our Deputy Director, DeAndre Berry. He will be presenting very briefly. And,
Take the microphone with you so the people online can see too. There you go.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Letitia Deland from DeKalb County Stone Mountain Circuit is here with us. Rick Samper from Coweta is here. And Clay Tapley from the Dublin Circuit is also here. Am I missing anyone? Natalie Glacier, Deputy, is also here. And Kenya Holmes is here, the Manager for Social Services. And I am here, Omatayo Ali, the Executive Director. And good afternoon to you.
Well, we're so glad to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah. Just briefly, last week when we met with you, there was a little bit of a confusion, and I take responsibility for that. Over the summer when we met extensively, and thank you again, and we came up with a number that will carry us through for the common pay plan. When we were asked a question, were we asking for more? I really wasn't sure what that question, I didn't know whether you had a different number than we had. And I wanted the opportunity to just go back and make sure that we did not make any mistakes as to what we asked for. We did not. It was the same number that we came up at the end of the process that we worked with you all during the summer. So we did not ask for a single penny more. I just want to make that clarification for our listening audience last week and for the people who are listening now. I am going to pass this on to, are you next? To Terry to do the ask. We have very few, maybe 2 items that we want to ask for this particular process today.
Okay, great. And I think we do have some follow-up questions, so we'll come, you do your presentation, we'll have some follow-up questions on that stuff. Thank you
so much.
Okay, we're on the last page of your tracking sheet, starting from 37.1 and 37.2. Both of those are asking for one-time salary supplement of $2,000 for the full-time state and regular employees. For the first program's $135,639, and for the second program is $1,582,455. For 37.2.2, it's increased funds to offset ARPA funds to continue representation of large multi-defendant cases, which are the conflict cases, and that amount is $5,521,712. And just to give a little history on that, in FY24 we spent about $17 million in ARPA funds, and in FY25 $16 million. We're on track to pretty much spend less than the 1.2 per month on our conflict contractors. We're spending between $800,000 and $900,000 per month due to changes that the director has made for conflict cases, as well as the opinion from the Supreme Court. And we do have one additional ask, and that is to start the pay scale for the assistant public defenders to begin January 1st, similar to the district attorneys or prosecuting attorneys. That amount for half the year is $4,148,091.
Say the number one more time. 4 million what?
$4,148,019.
Okay. All right. You have a question? I sure think you got another one. So let me just we just go back to the conversation at the presentation that happened. Make sure I understand where things were. So we met this summer. We got the pay rates down. I think what the questions became were, in the past, you guys had positions that you consolidated, that you didn't have filled, and you consolidated, and the rate of pay was consolidated. And now that we've made this agreement, those positions that you had consolidated are now back open, and the increase is really to fill all the positions, whether they're filled or whether they're open, in the hopes of filling them. Is that correct?
So those positions are not the statutory positions. The positions we're asking for the assistant public defenders are the statutory positions. The other positions are not statutory. They were mostly in our first program, and we had Department of Audits come in and we went through all the positions, and most of them were in the first program. We did not touch any of the statutory positions. Those are still open. They still match one attorney per judge, one chief public defender, 4 chief judge. Those are still open. They have not been touched.
Okay. But I think the question, so the non-statutory has not been touched. The statutory were touched per our agreement this summer, the work we did. It's still a question about the root of the question, and I'll let Chairman Gunner ask it maybe a different way today, but The idea was that public defenders paid more for an APD than a similar ADA. And so as pay parity has worked its way through, and now we're going to pay parity. If you're paying more here for public defenders and ADAs were getting paid less, and in order to make it level out on the pay, we're trying to figure out how does this get paid more in order to level out. So where are the extra funds going that weren't there before? So like, I don't know how another way to describe it. Basically, it seems like you should not be asking for more money in order to level set with ADAs, unless there was a pay increase, or unless there were positions that we were funding that we weren't funded, or that we were either consolidated or weren't funded before.
Okay.
There's got to be an answer, though. That's the root of. There's an answer. We were not asking the right question to get to it, but there's an answer.
Okay, so we took into account both for, say, an attorney one. We took into account if they were receiving state funds and if they were receiving county funds, and that's how we got
County supplements.
County supplements. Those are the funds that we see that comes through our agency. And most of the attorneys that were attorney one came up to the 72 with both funding sources. There were about 3 that did not have any county supplement, and those are the ones we increased. I think we sent information on the background of that when we passed, when HB 911 was passed. 911 was passed, and we sent all the information about the positions we broke down. So the positions that were not statutory, you're asking where those funds went to. Those funds went to conflict cases and to handle the influx that we were receiving. You know, as the public defender, we don't indict cases. Whatever we received a lot of cases that had 50 defendants. We had to find 50 attorneys. And one time, I think it was over 100, and they just kept coming every month. So that's where the funds were appropriated to, or spent.
Sure. Yeah, I get where they're spent. I'm just trying to figure out where they're going, the future. All right, we'll go to, was it your question? Yeah, Vice Chairman Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank y'all for being here with us. I want to ask about 3722. How did we handle the funding for large multi-defendant cases pre-ARPA?
So pre-ARPA, we had some funding. That was really before I got here. Pre-ARPA, we had some funding that way from the state. But with ARPA coming in, with COVID coming in, there was a serious surge in ARPA in conflict cases, and ARPA came in to actually help with that. It was amazingly high, and that was at the point that I joined this agency, and then we were able to use the ARPA funds that came in at that point. So with ARPA coming in, we did not have, please correct me if I'm wrong, we did not have state funds at that point. We were able to use ARPA funds.
So help me just drill down on this. There was COVID caused an increase in conflict cases?
Yes, sir.
How?
Because at the time of the COVID, from what I understand when I came in, there was court closures. We were not able to process the cases as we should have been. And so there was a serious backlog at that time. And that was what that money was appropriated for. And we're still trying to catch up even up till today. We have not been able to catch up even today.
I guess I'm trying to, no one expected the ARPA funds to be ongoing when they came down from the federal government. How long do you think, if we were to fund it for this year, and that, how long do you think we need to keep doing that?
I hope we don't keep it for too long. I hope we can adjust the number of indictments that are coming in so that we're not having to keep catching up on the number of funding that we're asking you. And we on our own, we're beginning to do some initiatives, whether we're the cause of the indictments or not. And that's why we've been able to reduce the cost from spending $1.2 million a month to $800, irrespective of the cost of it. The real reason why we keep having to ask for more money is because the indictments are not stopping. Sometimes we have on one indictment 159 defendants. What happens when we have that? We have to have 158 attorneys who are conflicted.
If they're all indigent.
If they're all indigent. And if they're not all indigent, which I can say to you, most of them will be indigent. Let's even say 60%, 70% of them are indigent. That's a lot of attorneys that we have to find conflict-free. Going forward, we're hoping that the new concurrence that's just been done by the Supreme Court and the new initiative that we just put in is going to come in to help to reduce that. And we're working on that. We're hoping to implement new protocols that will help us to just process our cases just based on actual conflicts alone.
And I guess just as we move through this process, obviously large multi-defendant conflict cases weren't a creation of COVID. They existed before COVID. They'll exist after COVID. And so I guess for me, the ARPA funds were supposed to be seen as a one-time injection into the system. And that's why I just want somebody to help me understand why it should need to be ongoing. And we can talk more about that as we move through this process.
Yes, sir. But if I may say something, though, sir, I have been in the system for a minute. I don't know that I have seen 156, 159, 160 clients being indicted at the same time. And where we have to, public defenders will have to find conflict-free. That's what the crux of this is. That's why we have to keep asking. But we're not just depending on the fact that we have to process the cases. We are also doing some initiatives on our own to see what we can do to reduce the cost. And that's why the cost is reduced from $1.2 million a month now to where we are now, $800 a month.
How would y'all have handled it if the federal government hadn't gone in more debt to pay for the ARPA funds and sent those down here? How would y'all have handled that if those tax dollars had not been sent down?
So there will be, and I'm really happy the federal government did what the federal government did. It will create an extraordinary amount of backlog for the courts, and we would not wish that on our courts. Because we can only do so much. If we get 159 cases on one indictment and we do not have money to hire, let's say 100 attorneys, that could create a gridlock for the courts. And we do not wish that. Irrespective of who's causing it, we don't indict the cases, but we are committed to processing it.
All right, thank you, Vice Chairman Kelly. Representative Evans? Yeah. What was the question?
Oh, I just didn't want to jump in front of the chairman, but.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have 3 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The first is going back to you were talking about making sure, I think I heard you right. Were you saying that you are still moving money around to make sure all the public defenders are paid the same when considering supplements, or are you saying you stopped that?
We stopped that.
Okay.
When we met with you all the last time and we were told not to consider
Okay.
that, we stopped that, and that's when gracefully you all created the scale, and we will go with that scale.
Okay. But that's still requiring some kind of infusion?
Of money
Yes.
from the legislature, from you all. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's on here that's in here where? Because it looks like this is just the increased funds for the statewide changes.
It is not on the tracking sheet. It's the.
That's
side
that 4.1 number that you
Correct.
said? Okay, so that's not
Outside
in
of
here.
this.
Okay. Okay. And you're saying that is what you need in order to get every public defender to the new pay scale
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we agree that's in parity,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're not taking into consideration county supplements anymore?
ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very important.
We were told not to take into. We did that in order to reduce that, and I understand the reason not to do that. We took that out of consideration so that we can have a level playing field.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the other my second question is these two places where it says increase funds to provide a one-time salary supplement of $2,000 to full-time regular state employees. And maybe this is a question more for the chairman or the budget staff, but I'm having a hard time understanding why that is in the public defender council budget, but it's not in anyone else's. If it's the statewide change, why are we only seeing it in the public defender budget?
It's because the public defender's executive branch. Is it? Yeah, so because it's executive branch, they're the only ones in executive branch for us. They got added. We'll go in and add judicial branches later.
Okay, and that would include the prosecutors?
Mhm.
Okay, that helps me, thank you. And then my last question is, just what you were just talking about with these multi-defendant indictment cases, 150 plus people. Are those coming from particular counties of particular types of crimes? I want to understand more what is happening here.
So those are sometimes like the gang and RICO cases,
Okay.
and they're usually the big cases. I don't have a breakdown now, but if you would allow me to provide you with a breakdown later on, I can do that.
Okay. Well, and I think you really answered my question. We're talking about gang indictments. That's why you get the long laundry list.
Yes.
Is there any other category where you're seeing them?
I think we typically get them from, and I don't want to answer that question without really being able to see it in front of me what the breakdown is.
Mm-hmm.
I think we typically see that when in the more serious cases. I think so. That I cannot answer without actually looking at the different indictments and the one with the big multi-defendants. I can answer that later.
And you mentioned that there might be a court opinion that helps you reduce the number of conflicts.
Yes, there was a court opinion, the concurrence that just came down.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're going to do with that is to workshop it to hopefully change our protocols, how we manage conflicts, to only use actual conflicts. We have workshopped it with some of our CPDs about 2 weeks ago. We're going to move forward with new protocols and hopefully implement that, and to make sure that it aligns with what the State Bar has done in the FAO, I think 110, and all the other existing laws. We are hoping that that will reduce the amount of money that's not only being spent on conflict cases, but also increase the ability to more effectively represent our clients.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just an observation to me that it seems, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it seems a little unbelievable that let's just take an indictment with 150 defendants on it. The idea that every single one of those 150 defendants has a conflict with all the other 149 defendants seems like a rough assumption to make from the beginning, that there wouldn't be an ability to appoint counsel and maybe conflicts arise. But the idea that we start out sort of out the gate that way seems not only very expensive to the system, but when we're talking about trying to keep the courts moving efficiently, I can think of nothing more inefficient than 150 lawyers arguing a case. So I don't want us to be
Best line of the day. Record that. Record
yeah,
that.
that'll probably come back to bite me one day, right? But I just don't want, and I'm not suggesting that you do, but we all want to do our best to follow the law, but we don't want to go so overboard at the beginning that we are creating more problems for the whole system. I mean, that's not good for it's not good for speedy trial. It's not good for the accused. It's not good for anyone. And so it feels like a rough assumption is being made on the front end. And so I'm just asking if the agency could please look at that and let's don't make assumptions on conflicts if at all possible.
We are working on it, and I think I shared that with the chairman about a few weeks ago. We are working on it very feverishly. We're looking to implement new protocols. Our first goal is to make sure that whatever we do is to actually help us to effectively represent our clients, but at the same time, to give value back to the taxpayers. We are cognizant of the cost as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Rep. Evans. Chairman Gunner.
All right, well, I held on this long, but Stacy asked a lot of what I was talking about. Because I'm with you. I don't see how you can try a case with 100 or more defendants in the same courtroom. We don't have courtrooms big enough for that. We'd have to be at the Georgia World Congress Center to try cases like that. And I've had multi-defendant cases, but never that many. And the ones that I did have were very difficult to arrange schedules of attorneys and things like that to have them come in. So yeah, please think about that. See if there's some way you can alleviate that or separate the cases, file a motion, do something. I don't know if this was asked, but how many cases do you have conflict counsel for? Do you know?
Mr. Barry. Can you answer that one?
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, I am DeAndre Berry, and that, Chairman, that question was asked last week.
Okay.
For, at the end of the calendar year of 2025, the conflict rate, sir, was about 12%, but for FY25, there were 8,716 total contractor cases. Now, for the total conflict cases, there were 15,800 conflict cases. We have 125 contractors, and that came out to be about 126.4 cases that averaged out per contractor.
All right, what the 8716, what was that for again?
That was a total contractor cases. So it came out to be, sir, about 55% of the cases of our total cases were contractor cases or conflict cases, sir. We had a total of 240,778 total cases in the agency.
Okay.
And for 15,800 cases were conflict cases.
Okay.
And 8,716 were the total cases handled by our contractors.
The 125 attorneys?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
okay.
sir. Conflict attorneys.
I'm gonna interject. Maybe I heard you wrong. I'm not sure. Or maybe I heard you right. What was the percentage of your cases that were conflict cases?
That were handled by contractors?
Yes.
55%, sir.
55%?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It just seems to me we need a new system. Just not working.
Any other questions?
No more.
Okay. Representative Holcomb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to maybe conclude this line of inquiry on the conflicts, because I'm both interested in it and concerned about it. And we heard that conflicts cases are an issue for prosecutors as well, which I had a more difficult time understanding than on the defense bar. I think it's much more common on the defense bar, particularly if you have defendants who may specifically point fingers at other people. That's certainly a clear conflict, but it would be very helpful to me and perhaps to others if we could get some real details and clarity in terms of what we're dealing with. Like, I'm familiar with being a metro-based legislator of some of the big cases that happen in Fulton, but I'm not aware of this happening more broadly across the state. And so if it is, if you can give us a sense of how frequent it is, and is it just RICO cases and gang cases, and in other words, is what we're dealing with kind of the new norm, or are these truly outliers? And like, I don't feel like I have a clear enough understanding of just the scope of the problem and what's causing it, or how to fix it and address it, because we want to make sure that people have access to counsel and quality counsel. And I don't know if you're still doing this, but I recollect a couple of years ago the conflict counsel were paid like $5,000 for like the entire case, which if the case goes to trial, good luck getting somebody that can do that work all the way through the case. It's not possible. You're losing money off of it. And so I think we really need some help of just really getting down and defining what we're dealing with, so we can then potentially come up with some proposals to fix it. But it's clear it's a mess, right?
Mess, but we are working on it daily. Some of the reasons why cases exist as conflicts, in addition to multi-defendant cases, there are fights in institutions, local jails, penal institutions, and of course those cases require counsel with every person that is engaged in that altercation. So we have to supply counsel for every one of those persons. And depending on the number of persons who are engaged in those altercations, we have to supply counsel for every person.
Who was it? Chairman Gunner?
Yes, and you have to provide counsel whether they ask for it or not. Is that what you're saying? If it's just got a few defendants listed in a case, you have to provide conflict counsel for all the others, all but one. Is that correct? You just make the assumption you have a conflict, and I'm honest. I'm not up on the conflict law right now that's created this, but that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, sir. The first.
There doesn't have to be an actual conflict. It's just that the numbers drive this whole thing. Is that what I'm hearing? Nope. Please help me then.
No, I'm just a little confused of what you're asking. We only provide counsel for somebody that's indigent that applies that's charged with a crime.
Whether there's an actual conflict with anybody else in the case?
So if there's, I'm trying to understand. I think what Mr. Berry was saying is if there's a fight in the jail and, 10 people are arrested, they're all going to be charged with battery or assault, and then all of them would apply, and we would represent all of them that qualify. It's just that one office can only represent one person. The way it is right now is that conflict is imputed to the entire office. So one person from Fulton County Public Defender Office can take one client. The other 9 have to go to outside attorneys, whether it's the Fulton County Conflict Office, which could take the second one. Now that office can only take one. And then we have some specialized units that we try to have employees absorb the next few layers so that we don't have to pay contractors for those. But then at some point they have to go out to contractors and we have to pay them. And honestly, our rates aren't much better than what you were saying. We have contracts for $100,000 for a contractor to take 100 Superior Court cases. So it's roughly $1,000 a case, and those are for serious felonies. And that's our most common contract structure.
Okay. That's not the answer I wanted to hear, but that explains it. So thank you.
I don't think that the law has changed on conflicts in a long time, my understanding. So maybe it's just more conflicts for whatever reason now.
I've been out of it for a while, so I'm not really up on what the conflict law is, but.
Yeah, I've never been in it, but I don't think
remember this problem when I was serving as DA.
So is it primarily Fulton County, to Representative Holcomb's point, the conflicts?
It varies with the county, sir.
Hold on a minute.
Do you have
Wait a
like?
minute. There we go.
How often is it that you do have indictments of like 100 people in a case. Is that still an outlier, or is that increasingly more normal?
Augusta had, what was it?
160?
Was it 72? Yeah. 72 count indictment. And, so it's different.
So 72 count indictment or 72 person indictment?
72 person.
Okay.
72 person.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll just repeat my request of if you can give us a breakdown of where the jurisdictions where this is happening, and then I think probably cases over like 20 and above or 15 above, like come up with some metric and then have a distribution of ranges. It would be helpful for us to have an understanding of how common this is, and then just the size and scope that we're dealing with.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Evans.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Chairman Gunner's question about, I get now what you're saying about how the conflict counsel is appointed, because once there's a conflict in the office, then you've got to go out to those different layers. I get that. But I think the question, I think part of the question that I still don't think is answered is the agency assuming, let's say the indictment has 10 defendants, are we assuming that all 10 defendants have a conflict, couldn't be represented by the same counsel, or is there any effort being made that one person could represent more than one defendant? Because to me, and I don't practice criminal law, so I want to make sure that obviously every defendant has their right to their own counsel that's going to look out for their own best interest. But just because 10 people are involved in a fight, on the surface, to me, it doesn't automatically scream that they all could not be represented potentially by the same attorney. And so I want to make sure we're not making assumptions on the front end. Obviously, if a conflict arises, we need to deal with it. But is that, which one comes first? Do we assume and give 10 different attorneys, or do we at least see if there's a way for one person to represent more than one defendant?
Typically, our circuit public defenders have interpreted what the State Bar and the Supreme Court has said to automatically assume that they're probably going to need conflict counsel. However, we have waivers of conflict that you can sign. It's just that by default, we tend to think that you're going to need separate counsel, but that's why we're reevaluating things based on the recent concurrence that said that, potentially the rules might not be as strict as we've been adhering to. We've had conversations with the State Bar, especially with each of these cases. We try to have the CPD go through and decide whether or not they can keep some or what they can do. But like I said, the default has been to try to provide everybody their own counsel. We're trying to see if we can move away from that a little bit, depending on the needs of the client. Because just like you said, sometimes there's co-defendants that have the same interest. They're not adverse at all. In fact, it would behoove them to have the same attorney to share those interests with both of them. And so that's what we're hoping for in the future.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, because I think even if the law with concurrence aside, even if this idea that once an agency is conflicted, once a county or office is conflicted, everybody in the office conflicted, doesn't necessarily, it's not the same thing as saying every defendant needs their own attorney, to me. And so I just want to make sure, and it sounds like we're moving in that direction, but just to echo Chairman Gunner, this is just not working. This is not it's not helpful for anybody. And most concerning to me is there's no way this is making justice move faster. And so we've got people accused of crimes, probably sitting in jail, not working, not seeing their kids, and we know this is a huge problem. And so, mine eyes are open and all of our eyes are open, and instead of just saying this is a problem and this is what we have to do, and that's not okay. I think we all need to dig in a little bit deeper and figure this out. This just can't continue.
We agree. This has been one of the biggest problems that GPDC has faced, is trying to fund this conflict program and also make sure that all of our clients have counsel and have adequate counsel, and it's something we're constantly working on.
Thank you.
Chairman Gunner.
Just a comment, it seems that the conflicts are swallowing the whole. It's the way I'm looking at it. Money-wise and every other-wise. So,
Yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
All right.
Well, may I make a comment before we close that?
Say that one more time.
May I make a comment before we close on the conflict?
Yeah, please.
We are making some serious efforts to look at the conflict rules, as Natalie has said, and to make sure that, and we're making sure that our clients are being represented, that we can represent them effectively. And that's why we have taken the concurrence very seriously, and we're working with our CPDs to make, and we're going to make sure that what we come up with is going to be that we can represent our clients and use actual conflict rules. Our hands have been tied before the concurrence came. When the concurrence came, we are using that as an opportunity to do what you have all elaborated on. Everything you said is not lost on us. We're working very hard to we're going to make sure that we come up with the best results.
Okay, and that's great. We want you to continue working hard. I think there's going to be rules probably coming out with that concurrence, so don't work. I mean, please do work towards it, because this is a lot of money. I mean, it's doing ARPA money and continuing on $5 million is tough. It's a tough pill to swallow. To be completely frank, from a state with federal infusion, all of a sudden that becomes the norm. But also, you know, whatever those rules are, I don't want you to rework this stuff again. But we do need to work towards resolving whatever it is making these conflicts so pricey. And before, I don't see any more questions, but before we go to, I'd like to meet tomorrow with Anna here and understand, I need to understand these salaries things just one more time. I feel like I have it, but somehow the numbers just don't go with what's in my brain. So there's a gap on my side that I really need to understand. And if I'm not available, I'm gonna have you meet with her, and she's gonna translate it back to me. But I need to understand that before Thursday morning. And so we'll get together, find a time on the calendar to work this out, and I just need to understand it. I'm not saying you're wrong, just need to understand it. Are there any other questions?
No,
comments?
I have. I brought some individuals down from far and wide to come speak to you about the issue of parity.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that they have that opportunity, because they drove through the cold to
Yeah,
make
I'm glad
sure
you're here.
that they're here, because that question came on when we were here the last time, not here, when we spoke to you last time, the
Sure.
need for parity. So I know I cannot speak to that as well as I should, and so I brought the people from the trenches to make sure that they are here. May I yield these seats to them?
Sure, you bet. And I'm glad you're here. And we do want parity. We're just trying to understand how.
Thank you.
We thought we
Thank you.
were closer. Yep.
And I will be bringing Clay Tapley, Letitia Deland, and Rick Samper from Coweta, and they should be coming right here now.
Oh, they're gonna go to the podium. I'd rather you stay at the podium right there. So, go ahead right there.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Did I understand you said you're for parity, right? So
I'm for parity.
because
Yeah.
it says on my little thing, it says parity justification. So if that's not a problem,
You don't need to justify it. I think we all agree. We worked really hard this summer to make sure we get to parity. I think the question is how did the parity end up with so much more money going to public defenders to make that happen when we thought public defenders were paid more? So that's the question. But I think everyone here will agree that we wanted pay parity, that the scales of, I think this is what Vice Chairman Kelly would always say, the scales of justice being balanced. So you don't have to sell that to us, but you're welcome to go ahead, and we agree with that.
I won't waste your time trying to sell it to you. And in fact, I appreciate all the hard work that went over this summer. I know that I have at least two members of this panel that sponsored a bill that did the CPD parity. I mean, we're on the right track. I think what sort of happened, and I don't want to out pump my coverage here. I'm just a silly CPD from Dublin, Georgia, but I have been around for probably longer than anybody else. I can answer some of the other questions, but as far as the parity and why the number jumped is when you look at APDs 1, 2, 3, and 4, historically, we were never on a pay scale. Like I used to work as a prosecutor, you know, how you have steps and levels. As a prosecutor, you can know if you work a certain number of years, you're going to be paid X no matter where you work at, who you are, or what you're doing. We never did that. All the way back to Michael Mears, first director. They didn't, anything to do with PAC they didn't like, I guess. I don't really understand that. But we didn't have a pay scale. So the only raises that the 1, 2, 3, and 4s ever got for the last 20 years has been cost of living raises that the governor would give us since we got moved to the executive branch. So you actually have APD 4s that have 17 years experience that are making, at this point, $40,000 to $50,000 less than a similar APD 4 or ADA 4 in the DA's office. And what happened is we went through, or not me, they went through every resume, every person. Like my chief has been with me for 17 years. She does make $40,000 less than a guy that works at the DA's office without considering his county supplement on top of that. And so I think that's where the number is coming. The 4 million ask is trying to get actual parity, and that's why there's a little bit more kickback now, because it was a lot worse than anybody ever thought. You know, because you do have lifers on both sides. They just make extremely, the APD 4 is the worst difference. APD 1 was a couple $1,000s, and that's when the DAs came to you and said, look, we need parity. We need to get to the 70. But the real problem was 2, 3, and 4s. That's where the 4 million came from. And like I said, I'm supposed to be selling parity, so, but that's what I understand it is, but I'm not a numbers guy.
Great, thank you.
And I would like to also point out that just like Judge Gunther, we didn't have 159 defendant people cases ever. You know, I was a prosecutor, I've been a private attorney. Those things, the RICO, the gang cases, even though they were on the books, were very rarely used. They were brought out not during COVID. That was a pretty horrible coincidence, but it was brought out right before COVID. They never breached into the smaller areas. They never went to Dublin. They never went to Blairsville. You never had a Chris Carr coming in with prosecutors and investigators and charging 100 and some people. That was something new that came about the last couple of years. And it was not that they automatically get, you know, attorneys, but what you have is they come to them. They know they're going after the kingfish. We all know that. But we can't sit and act like everybody doesn't need an attorney. But what they do is they cut deals and they work their way up the food chain. As they cut deals, they're literally asking you to testify against your co-defendant, which just does knock into conflict rules. That's why those become more problematic. In the past, we have flirted with the conflict rules. We have held on to cases. Honestly, as a CPD, if I know who the kingfish is, I keep him. I keep the main guys and try to wait till the smoke clears and all the political hoopla is over with. Because it makes the front page, it looks good, but then it goes away and the real work gets done. And that's why, but if you were to ask the state bar, they would say I was violating my rules if I kept them too long. But my theory on it was we would keep them until we actually saw the discovery and we actually saw there was a conflict. But historically, no, never. I mean, Dublin, Georgia, you know, Augusta, whatever, anything south of Atlanta, there was not historically RICO cases. So it helps clear up anything.
So you got a question, Representative Holcomb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the average caseload of the public defenders in your circuit?
400.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
All right, well, like I said, I brought, or I didn't bring them, they came by themselves. We all rode in one little van. It was a whole story. But I have Mr. Land from the cab and Mr. Samper from Coweta. And
Please.
And what they wanted to address is, because it is, the code section back in 2004 created a weird system. It really did. And in fact, you're right. Sometimes it does seem like we're eating on ourselves. But each person has a different funding process. There's some counties that actually fund the CPDs pretty well. There's some that give us nothing. There's some that give the DAs $1 million more than they give us. But that is why the pay parity is so important to someone like me. I can sell and I can get people if it's equal. And I can fight about the county. I can fight about the extra money that the counties give them, but I can't do both. I need y'all to level the playing field, and then I'll worry about the county supplements and everything out later on. But they are an example of different levels. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Letitia DeLand. I'm the Circuit Public Defender in DeKalb County, which, as you all know, is one of our larger counties. I have been with the Public Defender's Office for more than 32 years. I've only been the CPD for 2 years, so I've seen pretty much everything there is to see in my office. And as we talk about the state system, DeKalb County is one of those counties that is largely county funded, but we do have state state-paid staff, both attorneys and administrative staff. And that causes an issue because DeKalb County, we're lucky, they pay well. So my state-paid attorneys are paid far less than my county-paid attorneys on the same level. A county one and a state one are paid probably close to $20,000 different, which when there's a state opening makes it hard then to fill that spot. And so that's, one of the sort of weird issues between it being a state and a county operated system. With respect to the conflict cases, I think I can answer at least as for DeKalb County. Some of the questions were about the number of conflicts that seem to be on the rise, and how that can be tied into the pandemic. Well, during the pandemic and the courts shut down and people sat in jail, mostly on the more serious offenses, but some of them just people who couldn't post a $1,000 bond or a $2,000 bond. They sat in jail and they sat in jail and they sat in jail far longer than they otherwise would have. As they sat in jail and they're locked down because of COVID restrictions, they become angrier. And so we started seeing a lot more jail fights. And it is not unusual in DeKalb County to see a case a week, a case every 2 weeks come in with a jail fight that involves 10 inmates. We represent all 10 of them. Now we have to look at those 10 cases and we have to parse out, all right, who's the victim in this jail fight? Do we keep that person and do we farm out the other 9? Well, that's going to depend on whether that one person has already 5 pending cases. So there are a lot of considerations that we have to go through to make a determination about whether there's a conflict. As we've already talked about, if they're all pointing fingers and they're saying, well, I didn't start it, I'm actually a victim. I was just trying to stop the fight. We have to go through all of that and figure it out. But if we go too far, then we end up having to conflict out of everything because we've learned too much information about each one of these cases and each one of these defendants. So it's a fine line. As the Circuit Public Defender in DeKalb, I try to be very cautious about those. I do examine every single conflict that comes before me and try to determine whether there is an actual conflict, whether this is something that I can say, hey, go to this person and see if they'll sign a waiver. Of course, when we do that, they're like, wait, I could have another attorney that's not in the public defender's office. So it's a tightrope, one that I gladly walk and that I accepted when I took on this role, but it's difficult. Again, I'm lucky to be in DeKalb County. Our commissioners are very understanding of the work we do and appreciative. I think our judges are too. But without having parity and without having some equality, it's hard for us to do our jobs. And if we can't do our jobs, then the system doesn't operate. It starts lagging and it starts falling behind.
Well, thank you so much and really appreciate what you do. I think you do have a question, Vice Chairman Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize for not asking this from the previous presenter as well, because I do just want to wrap my head around how some of the local governments are dealing with this. You just stated that a local public defender is on a higher pay scale than a state-paid public defender.
In DeKalb County.
In DeKalb County,
Yes.
correct. How does a local public defender in DeKalb County stack up to a local ADA in DeKalb County?
In DeKalb County, we have parity.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Ricardo Samper. I'm the Circuit Public Defender for the Coweta Judicial Circuit. I got appointed as a Circuit Public Defender in January of 2025 when we had a circuit split. So I'm the new person on the block, so to speak. I can tell you that as far as conflicts go in my circuit, I screen every one of them and look at them, and I go back and question my attorneys as to whether or not we have an actual conflict or not. The problem that we run into, though, and I was glad to hear you say that you are for the pay parity, because we do have discrepancies. How much, I don't know, because of the way that things are done. I know that as far as like Coweta County goes, they have asked me to try to convert people from state funded or from state positions to county positions, because then the numbers can go up some because of the different costs involved and such and so forth. But the problem that I have is that in our circuit, we're close to Fulton County. We're close to DeKalb. We get a lot of people that commute out to my circuit to work. And when you turn around, and my big problem is dealing with pay equity and dealing with trying to retain attorneys, because it's much easier for them to come to the bigger counties that are more affluent and have more money to make more money. So a lot of them will come to me, work for 2 or 3 years, get a lot of experience, and then go to where they can be making more money. What that does for me is it turns around and the attorneys that I have that are remain and that have been with me for a while increases their caseloads, increases their workload for the same amount of money. And then it also makes it harder for us to try to turn around and recruit new people to come in. It gets back to, I heard questions talking about people sitting in jail and how fast justice goes. I've been telling my commissioners that we need to be equally staffed, because if you give the prosecutors all these other resources, if you give the judges all these other resources, like I have seen happen in Coweta County, then my office, we don't get any other resources. We can only move so many cases. There's not but so many hours in the day that we can work, and it takes everybody in all prongs of the system to make the system work and to make the system and to make those cases go through the system.
Thank you. I do have a question. What's their average caseload for a public defender in your circuit?
Right now, I am short attorneys because I haven't been able to fill slots. So I carry a full caseload myself. In addition to, in a lot of circuits, the DA does not carry a caseload, but I carry a full caseload myself. Most of the attorneys in my circuit are carrying about 600 cases. And it's between 400 and 600, depending on how long they've been there.
You said 300?
I said between 4 and 6.
4 and 6. I think the district attorneys are in the 800 to 1,000 range, is what I remember from District Attorney Herb Cranford. So I agree with you. We need pay parity. I don't think you're going to get equal to district attorneys in that you only represent the indigent versus representing everyone. But we do need to make sure that you have the adequate resources to do your job. I don't know if it's the same, equals the same as what a prosecutor has. Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 400 sounded a lot to me. 600 sounds like not doable. Is that a manageable caseload?
It is not.
Okay.
What
do you think is?
We work really hard to get it all and to keep it all going.
Yes.
And it's hard to say exactly what is. I know, and everybody's heard
That's
about
fair.
ABA standards that say they're about 150 or so. I think probably around 2 to 250 is probably manageable. Whether we can ever get that way or not is a different story. And then one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and I've been asked by county commissioners about caseloads and how many cases we close out, and I give the example about a case that I spent about 6 hours on. Went out to the jail, showed all the videos, went through everything. As quick as I got out of the jail, I went back to my vehicle, pick up my cell phone, and have a message from a private attorney that says, "A family member has hired me, I forgot to tell you." After I had put in all the work to prepare it and get it ready. And unfortunately, the person qualified for an attorney, and we couldn't help that a family member turned around and did. But we get a lot of situations where, that is not that uncommon, where we get a case all the way worked out in the last minute, somebody else, a family member or a friend or whatever, hires for them. And at that point, we have still used those resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Appreciate what you do. Thanks for being here. Thank you for bringing them. That was great.
Yes, there's one more person, sir.
Sure.
Yes, thank you so much for indulging us to bring all these people. And I just heard you say that the prosecutors have more people that they represent, but one thing we do, we don't stop representing people. Our work does not end. When the judge says case is over, ours is never over. So I'm happy that Kenya is here and Ms. Holmes is here to tell you about what we do to show you that our representation never ends. Because we're looking at this caseload and we say to ourselves, what must we do to reverse this revolving door? And that's why we have the social services, and that's why we have the programs that we have. That's why we have our own 501c, to make sure that we can have programs that are sending people back to school. So I'm so happy that she's here, because our work never ends as public defenders. There's never a time that you will be in a courtroom that you will not see a public defender. They might have more cases than we have, but we have the complexity of what we have to do is much more than what they do. And so I thank you for allowing me to bring Kenya to talk to you a little bit more about the social services that we must provide to the state and to the taxpayers, so that we can make sure that we can reverse this cycle that we have that's bringing people back into the system.
Great.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Do you have a question? Do you have a question? Oh, sorry, Representative Evans.
And if did we get the caseload numbers from DeKalb, the average caseload?
How about this? How about instead of, you can tell us on the record, but if you can give us just the average caseload per circuit, that would be awesome.
We can do that.
Yeah, would that help everybody?
Definitely.
You can state your
Yeah,
caseload, but
yeah,
if you can just give us the average caseload, that'd be awesome.
Not unusual for the average to be 300 to 400 for our Superior Court attorneys and 400 to 500 for our misdemeanor attorneys right now.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenya Holmes, and I assist in overseeing the Social Services Department within the Georgia Public Defender Council. And thank you, Director Ali, for the opportunity to just speak a little bit about the critical supports that we offer our clients beyond the courtroom, including connections to housing assistance, mental health support, substance use support. But in addition to that, today I would like to specifically speak about the Ladders program. And Ladders is to us just not a program, it's a new path for our youth across Georgia between the ages of 16 and 24. So we are a statewide structure and holistic program that serves young people at a critical crossroads, navigating system involvement while working to complete their education, secure employment, and overall just achieve stability. So through individualized case management, mentorship, education support, career readiness training, and life skills development, our goal is to help our participants just become stable and self-sufficient. So we focus on sustainable progress and not just short-term intervention. So the outcomes have been very, very meaningful in the Ladders program. Participants that have come through our program are actively working towards their GEDs, technical certificates, and employment pathways. So many of them enter the program disengaged from school or work and leave with clear goals, increased accountability, and measurable progress toward economic independence. So by addressing educational gaps, employment barriers, and life skill deficits early, it is our mission to reduce recidivism and, just produce long-term cost saving for the state. So we are very, very excited about this program. I am so passionate about just supporting our youth statewide, and we are here to just change individual lives. So we are strengthening families, reducing strain on public systems, and creating pathways to purpose and productivity for young Georgians statewide. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate what you do and appreciate explaining it. Any questions from the committee?
If you know any youth, we would love to assist them.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. I don't think there's anything further. I would like to get with you guys tomorrow morning with Anna. So we'll talk after this, but there's nothing else. We're adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you.